in her husband's eyes. His wife's life is a straight line, every day. She either cleans the house or practices yoga, but he completely underestimated his wife. After discovering that her husband had left, Anna immediately got up and left. Then she went to the taekwondo gym. Practicing this will definitely come in handy in the future, because her husband and assistant want to join forces to get her killed. Fortunately, Anna had planted a bug in the alarm clock. Anna first drew 200 milliliters of her own blood, poured it onto the floor and kept smearing it with her hands, and finally dragged a horizontal line with her hands on the bloodstains. After doing all this, Anna stepped on the bloodstains in shoes that were 5 centimeters larger than she was. After a while, she changed into a black outfit and left her house smartly, but she didn't go far. Instead, she hid in the corner of the yard. Anna didn't want to do this, but her husband had really gone too far. Her parents had just died not long ago. She then noticed that her husband's clothes smelled of perfume every day when he came home, so she secretly investigated her husband, but found him being intimate with his company's assistant. In order to find out how their relationship was progressing, she took her husband's phone while he was asleep. Unexpectedly, the two had been chatting just an hour ago. The content of the conversation exceeded her imagination. She had thought it was just an ordinary affair, but it turned out that they had been talking about her late parents. It turned out that the two elderly people had donated all their assets after their deaths. The assistant encouraged him, saying, "Doesn't your wife still have savings?" Her husband asked her if there was any way to get it. The assistant told him to prepare for another funeral. Seeing this, the wife's scalp went numb. She never thought her husband was so ruthless. Once, she ignored her parents' objections and insisted on marrying her husband, a penniless man. For this reason, her parents did not leave her a fortune. She firmly believed that her husband did not value her status as a wealthy heiress. After all, they had feelings for each other from the time they fell in love to the time they got married. In order to allow her husband to have his own business, Anna even specifically invested in a coffee shop for him. She thought everything was developing in a good direction. Unexpectedly, she introduced the assistant, a vixen. I don't know when her husband's heart changed and even wanted to put her to death. Then she pretended to be calm on the surface, but as soon as she saw her husband off, she immediately started acting. Anna did find the assistant's door card in her husband's wallet, so she sneaked into the assistant's house, looking at the messy bed and the photo of the two of them on the side. Before she had time to get angry, she immediately looked at the alarm clock on the table and quickly unscrewed it and put in the bug she had prepared long ago. Then she also put one in the switch at her own home, so as to gain insight into everything her husband did at home. Sure enough, that night, she learned from the bug in her assistant's house that the two were plotting how to get rid of their stupid daughter. Hearing this, the wife wanted to buy a grenade and blow them up, but then she heard the sound of the two of them making love, and she felt like throwing up on the spot. But she didn't expect that while they were making love, they were also researching how to put poison in her favorite red wine. At this moment, Anna could no longer control her desire for revenge. You have to know that the name of that bottle of red wine is Eternal Love, because they drank it when they made their promise when they were in love, signifying their eternal love, and even sealing their declaration of love with wine. Unexpectedly, her husband wanted to use this wine to kill her. Since the other party is not benevolent, Anna will not be polite. When her husband came home, he found a lot of blood stains in the house. At first, she just wanted to see her husband's reaction. Sure enough, her husband looked so nervous. She thought her husband had a trace of love for her, but when she found a note left by the kidnappers telling him not to call the police, he gave a wicked smile. At this time, the wife's heart was frozen because her husband was impatient to call the police. At this moment, the wife decided to go all the way. Then she took off her gloves and took out the pliers. She painfully pulled out one of her fingernails and dropped the blood into her husband's trunk. Afterwards, she sent the fingernail to her husband and even heard her husband's confession from the surveillance. But her husband valued money above his life. Then Anna took a selfie of being abused by the kidnappers and asked her husband to take the 5 billion ransom. Watching her husband being fooled around by her, Anna felt slightly better inside. But from the nervous expression on her husband's face, it was clear that he valued Anna's life more than 5 billion won. After retrieving the ransom from the rubbish dump, she knew it was time to finish things off. Anna anonymously reported her husband for spiking the wine, and her aim was to drive a wedge between her husband and his assistant, so that her husband would come back to her. In fact, she had already replaced the poisonous wine with a harmless one. For the final step, she just needed to pretend to be found by the river, and then she could return to her rightful place. But Anna doesn't know if she can go back to the way things were with her husband. When her husband walks in the door, she can't wait to go to him and comfort him. You can tell from her eyes that she's not pretending. He sincerely thanks the heavens for sending his wife back to him. His wife knows that she's gambled right this time. The love she wants is back, but the police haven't caught the kidnapper, so they can't close the case. But the wife said the whole time that she was wearing a mask, so she doesn't know who it was. Although her husband's been cleared of suspicion, the veteran cop reminds him that the test report on the wine bottle hasn't come out yet. His obvious guilty conscience won't do. Suddenly his subordinate rushed over and claimed that no poison had been detected in the wine. The husband was dumbfounded. He had personally injected it. But in any case, He was completely exonerated. The feeling was simply invincible. Little did he know that the old policeman saw his excited expression. This made him even more convinced that Jack was up to no good. So he found the assistant through the reporting information. When he took out the sumac she had bought, the assistant said it was a normal ingredient needed in food. The old policeman knew that this ingredient was toxic when combined with other ingredients, and asked her if she was sure she hadn't given it to anyone else. Subsequently, she revealed that no wonder the poison had not been detected in the wine, and this revelation made the assistant suspect Jack's infidelity. She was surprised that he had not followed their actions. Little did she know that at this time, the original couple were very much in love. The husband was so considerate as to take care of his wife. He even didn't want to leave her in the middle of the night. But he didn't expect that the next day his brother-in-law would suddenly pay a visit. He let him wait quietly for the fish to bite the bait. Jack felt that his brother-in-law was a bit suspicious, but quietly left the room. He didn't believe there was anything hidden in it. Yesterday, his wife finally returned home alive after a close call and received a lot of attention from the media. This time, she was able to return safely. The husband and wife both bowed 90 degrees to thank the people who had been concerned about them, but no one saw the wife reveal a strange smile. The loving live broadcast of the husband and wife made the assistant feel so sick. At the moment, she hated to slap it away. At that moment, she suddenly noticed a listening device on the ground, and then looked at the smug wife and realized that this wealthy family's daughter was no ordinary person. At that moment, the husband and wife seemed to have returned to the right track, but in fact, they each had their own plans. The husband took care of his wife without showing any emotion, and when the wife noticed the strangulation marks on his neck, she stood up suddenly, feeling distressed. The wife didn't expect her husband to commit suicide for her. In fact, Jack was innocent and had no way out. The wife said, "Then we should cherish each other even more in the future." The wife, who was lying in the quilt, suddenly felt very happy. At this moment, she suddenly thought it was time to take something away. Then she took out a screwdriver and took advantage of her husband taking a shower to disassemble the switches in the house. Then she took out the bug from inside, unbeknownst to her husband, who never went to the shower but was secretly watching his wife's movements. Sure enough, her brother-in-law was right, that the house really had been bugged. But Jack didn't expose his wife on the spot. But what he didn't expect was that his wife actually gave him the bug and asked Jack what was in it. Jack was also dumbfounded after picking it up. Who installed this? But his wife looked scared. After all, the kidnappers had not been caught. At this moment, Jack didn't know whether to believe what his wife said. On the surface, they looked like a model couple. Even before going out, her husband would give her a kiss. The more Jack thought about it, the more he felt something was wrong. Why would there be a bug in their perfectly normal home? So he turned the car around and prepared to go home. But he didn't go through the front door. Instead, he snuck into the house. He watched his wife as usual. He knew that next, she would go to the yoga studio, which confirmed his suspicions. His wife didn't seem to have any problems. When he arrived at the coffee shop, before the car had come to a stop, his assistant got into the car. She took out the listening device and said she had found it in her rental apartment. As for poisoning the wine, no one knew about it except you and me. Why would someone report it? The only purpose is revenge, and the only one who wants revenge is your wife. But Jack insisted that it wasn't her. His assistant saw that Jack was not going to be convinced, so she had to use her trump card and pounced on him directly. But Jack pushed her away this time, because at the moment his mind was in a mess. Although he had just refuted the assistant's words had made him once again feel the urge to investigate his wife. The police have seized the kidnapper and have a new lead. They have found a man named Song Yuman who is strongly suspected, and this person is Anna's junior. But strangely enough, the person who took the money was not him, so it is very likely that Song Yuman is an accomplice. At the moment, Jack's mind was racing with ideas. His wife must have set up the scene of the crime with him. She was responsible for smearing the bloodstains, and Junior was responsible for putting on his shoes, trying to frame him for leaving footprints. The image of the two of them was so sweet that he wanted to vomit. Before he could finish his thoughts, the police questioned him as to why he had thrown away the bottle of poisonous red wine, even though Jack had stated that he really hadn't poisoned it. The police used their sixth sense to tell him, judging from the happy look on your face, there must be something wrong with the wine. But Jack explained that he was happy because his wife had returned. However, the police reminded him not to be too happy. After all, where the poison wine is, you probably don't even know. This sentence directly awakened Jack. He was a little panicked now, so as soon as he got home, he couldn't wait. Although the surveillance camera couldn't see who took the money, the clothes were a black windbreaker. Then he tried to look for the clothes in the closet, but after searching, he didn't find it. In order not to alert the suspect, he couldn't investigate any further tonight. But the next morning, the assistant encountered an uninvited guest. The dish served was directly told to have a smell of hussy. Jack embarrassedly scratched his head. The assistant knew that this person was not a good person, so he was about to turn around and ignore him. Unexpectedly, the woman coldly mocked him. A smell of hussy? Don't you know you need to wash yourself before serving customers? Jack signaled to stop, but the assistant was not convinced. He threatened that our boss is clean. Let him serve you. Unexpectedly, The woman is the boss's sister. The assistant then realized that poor Jack was still scared. The assistant was so angry that she wanted to pack up and leave. Unexpectedly, the head chef reminded her to go out the back door. The assistant said, "Are you saying that the boss's wife is here?" Sure enough, it was Anna. Jack was instantly scared and didn't know what to do. At that moment, the assistant had the nerve to come and greet Jack. Jack couldn't stand it anymore. What the hell was going on? When she learned that the assistant had to go home early due to some personal business, the boss's wife immediately gave her permission and told her to go home with peace of mind. The store can handle it with the husband and wife working there. The assistant says that thanks to you, the store's business has improved, but his wife whispers in her ear, "Thanks to you." The assistant's face instantly freezes. Then the wife goes to the dressing room and takes out the assistant's name tag on the spot and then gracefully tears it in half and throws it in the trash. Then the husband and wife rush to clean up the dishes in the store. This feels like a crazy husband protecting his wife. The assistant outside the door is furious and at a loss for what to do, but the guilty husband can't understand his wife anymore. Seeing the assistant's angry face, she gave a smug smile, and this smile made her husband feel that his wife was not that simple. So in the middle of the night, he couldn't hold back. After making sure that his wife was asleep, Jack took a flashlight and tried to find the bottle of red wine that he had poisoned. Just then, his wife suddenly appeared behind him and asked him if this was the bottle of wine he was looking for. At this point, the husband finally understood that his wife had long known that he wanted to poison her to death. The husband asked her if she wanted to take revenge for his infidelity. The wife nodded without hesitation and admitted that she wanted to see him suffer. The husband asked the wife why her heart was so black. The wife was speechless. "Is your heart not black? When you learned that I was kidnapped, you actually laughed." At this moment, the husband suddenly realized that she had been kidnapped and it was all staged. The wife laughed and said, "I owe it to you." The husband felt that she was crazy and wanted to call the police, but the wife reminded him, "You know better than anyone what is in this bottle of red wine." The husband thought to himself that his wife was testing him, so he denied it and said that the police had already taken the red wine bottle away and did not detect anything. The wife asked in return, "Aren't you curious? Obviously you poisoned it. It's impossible that it couldn't be detected. That's because I helped you switch it, for the sake of husband and wife. I don't want to let you go down the path of crime, and you wanted to poison this bottle of red wine. Should I hand it over to the police?" Upon hearing this, the husband was desperate. Then he went up to grab it in an open and above-board manner. He didn't care at all that the two of them were still on the stairs. Fortunately, the wife's taekwondo training came in handy, but because the two were so strong, they rolled down the stairs together. The husband didn't forget to grab the wine to destroy the evidence. The wife laughed at him for being so naive. "How could I carry such important evidence with me at all times? I hid the bottle you wanted a long time ago, so the two of us kept each other's secrets and lived our little lives." The husband angrily called her crazy. "I'm not going to live with a crazy person." But the wife calmly said, "You're forcing me to love you more." Just as her husband gasped, the phone in the bag rang. During the day, the police found Junior's gallery room and wanted to investigate the kidnapping case. However, they found no one in the house. Unbeknownst to them, Junior, who was guilty, had already hidden in a corner. He thought that he should go out during the day. Something happened. He waited until the night to investigate. However, he didn't expect that a fire would burn the gallery to the ground at night. Brother-in-law informed Jack that he suspected that Junior had been killed to silence him. With the fire so intense, Junior must be dead. It is very likely that his accomplice did it, but Jack's first reaction was to think that his wife did it. At this time, his wife brought 2 glasses of red wine and gestured for him to lift them up to celebrate the beginning of a new life together. Seeing the shocked look on her husband's face, his wife assured him that there was nothing wrong with the wine. The next morning, as usual, her husband was waiting for breakfast, but as he watched his wife squeeze the dragon fruit juice, he associated it with her and wondered if she had disposed of Junior without a trace. Thinking about this, he could not help but be afraid. Without bothering to eat breakfast, he grabbed his briefcase and was about to leave, when he quickly grabbed a pair of shoes to escape as soon as possible. But his wife suddenly appeared behind him, so the husband pretended to be calm and said he was just checking if his shoes were dry. His wife signaled for him to eat, so there was no choice but to obey. Before leaving the house, the husband gave his wife a kiss as usual, but his wife grabbed him and looked to see if he had any allergies around his neck. The husband pretended to explain that he didn't eat messy food, so it was usually fine. The moment he turned his head, he was confused, so he ran to the car and checked again, not feeling at ease. Sure enough, this time he was not allergic to his wife. He couldn't help but wonder, could it be that his allergies were scared off by his wife? From this, he judged that this woman was really scary. He didn't want to keep putting up with it. Otherwise, he wouldn't know how he died, so he pretended to drive out, but actually lured her away. Sure enough, his wife changed her outfit and went out, but the husband was observing her in the shadows. He had never seen his wife use such a big handbag before. Could it be that it is used to hold the 5 billion? Then he followed his wife all the way, but found her entering the public toilet with the bag, so he kept watching in case he missed it. Unexpectedly, His wife changed her appearance. This time he was sure that his wife must have a problem. Then he continued to follow her all the way, and he actually found her going to the coffee bean shop, although the husband was a bit confused. At this time, he saw his wife's junior. Could it be that his wife did not kill him? Although they could not hear what they were saying, but he could see the 5 billion in the suitcase clearly. At this moment, he was sure that his only goal was the 5 billion. Watching the money being taken away again by Junior, the husband immediately followed behind. But just as Junior turned the corner, he tried to quickly follow, but bumped into his wife. His wife said that it was really a coincidence. The husband hurriedly explained that he was here to buy coffee beans. His wife heard that it was a coincidence, and I also, then took the husband's arm and walked in the opposite direction. After returning home, the husband did not change his ways. He found the assistant again, and the two discussed taking their wife's 5 billion together. The assistant was overjoyed to hear this, and the suitcase containing the 5 billion was left by the clueless junior at the rundown hotel, and the wife had already thought of an excuse. She told her husband that the 5 billion was with Junior. Her husband didn't expect her to blurt it out herself. The wife said she had been threatened. Junior told her to choose between taking the money with him and returning it. If she chose to stay with her husband, she would not get the money. On the surface, the husband comforted his wife for her hard work, but the next day he started plotting with the assistant in the store as to what his wife was up to. He didn't want to know at all, and now all he could think about was the money. That night the assistant got into Jack's car and confidently said she could get the 5 billion. Obviously Jack didn't believe her at all, but the assistant told him to use his head and not forget that when your wife was a model, her junior had already fallen in love with her, and that was 10 years ago. Although Junior's studio was destroyed in a fire, but there was a secret compartment in the room and a picture of your wife hanging on the wall. From this, you can tell how persistent the boy is with your wife. The next day in the store, the two of them started planning. Jack was in charge of watching his wife, trying to delay her in the lobby, while assistant took the opportunity to run to the dressing room and found his wife's phone, then turned on the flight mode. Then assistant told Jack, "This trick will definitely make Junior desperate." Jack completely didn't understand what assistant was playing. The assistant seemed to have caught a whiff of money, so the two of them were a little out of control in the car, but they didn't expect Junior to be there sooner than they thought. However, the assistant also noticed the target appear. Then he said triumphantly, "The fish is hooked." The assistant then signaled Jack to take her upstairs. As soon as she entered the room, she started her seductive act. Jack was confused. Why was she in such a hurry today? The assistant told him to shut up. Then he looked at the alarm clock next to him. It turned out that she had played along with the plan. She had put the listening device back in, and then informed the other person by lip reading that she was being monitored. Although Junior downstairs didn't hear much, she was sure that her sister's husband had betrayed her again. Then he called her sister's phone. Little did he know that her sister's phone had been stolen by the assistant. Meanwhile, Anna went back to the dressing room to get her things and prepare to go home. What was strange was that her phone was missing, so she used the landline in the store to call her own phone. However, she found that it didn't connect, but she couldn't hear the ringtone of her phone. Her first instinct knew that something was wrong. Then the phone call went to her husband. She asked where he was. Jack didn't think twice and said he was in the store. Anna was stunned at first, and then asked, "Didn't you see the store number? This is the landline in our store, but I didn't see you in the store." Jack hurriedly explained that he had just come out. His wife didn't continue to expose him. Instead, she asked Jack to pick her up and take her home. Before leaving, the assistant reminded him that they had already completed half of the task. All that was left was to wait for Junior. After leaving, Jack didn't forget to give the assistant a thumbs up. When he arrived at the garage, he discovered that the trunk of the car was open. Jack clearly remembered closing it. At the moment, he had no idea that danger was approaching. The sudden attack caught him off guard. Before he could react, the other person pounced on him like a mad dog. He even stabbed him with a dagger. Jack fought back desperately, but the other person used all his strength to kill him. Just as Jack couldn't hold on anymore, his wife picked up a tool and smashed it at the man. Jack was so scared that he kept backing up. When he saw it was his junior, Anna asked him why he did it. Junior, however, said he wanted to save her. The husband on the side heard the meaning and could no longer pretend. From beginning to end, the wife's kidnapping was a setup. Watching Junior being driven away in anger, the husband exploded at Anna, claiming, "I've had enough of you, monster." The wife said helplessly, "You forced me to do this. Didn't you also try to poison me with red wine?" The husband pretended not to care. "I just want you dead." The wife cried, "Didn't I show you that I'm dead? Then why did you pay 5 billion to get me back?" The husband asked her what she really wanted. The wife only said 3 words. The husband had to obey. After returning home, he pretended to go to the toilet and then called his assistant. From the other person's excited mouth, he learned that she had found Junior's hiding place. Jack reminded her not to act rashly. The guy had a knife in his hand. The assistant assured him that he would not embezzle the 5 billion himself. After coming out, Jack tried to hide his wife's phone, but suddenly his wife burst in, so scared that he put the phone in the toaster. His wife pretended not to see, so she took the opportunity to get a cup and calmly took the phone away. The two knew what was going on but didn't say anything. After opening the phone, there were dozens of missed calls. Hearing Junior's message, she knew that Junior had been set up. While there were guests in the house, his wife knew that now was the perfect time to go out and take care of business. Then she took out the car's dashcam, then drove all the way to a mysterious place. But Anna had no idea that there was an eye staring at her from behind. Soon she arrived at a bar. It was obvious that the two were old acquaintances. She told the man, "I didn't think Junior would cause such a big problem." The bartender reminded her that she had long suspected that Junior would not follow the plan, so it was time to call it quits. But Anna said she would stick to the end, and now it was just the beginning. The man looked at the knife on the table and signaled that Junior's mission was complete. Soon Anna found Junior. She tried to remind Junior that it was time to go back to their respective positions. Seeing that Junior was still obsessed, she told him to stay away from that scumbag. So she made up her mind and asked Junior to do one last thing for her. After completing a series of tasks, they returned home. Anna was oblivious to the fact that the young man next door had been watching her. What was strange was that an art exhibition had suddenly been held in the city center, where no exhibitions had been held for several years. The police had always suspected that Junior was the suspect in this kidnapping. They had hoped to find him at the exhibition. Unexpectedly, Anna's portrait appeared in the exhibition after being defaced. At the same time, the bartender also appeared at the exhibition. He picked up his phone and told Anna, "This guy is still taking matters into his own hands, so we need to hurry." At this moment, the reckless assistant has already started acting alone, while the cleaner is not paying attention. She quickly takes away the sign that the room has been cleaned. Then she complains to the cleaner that her room has not been cleaned yet. When the cleaner enters, the assistant also successfully sneaks into the room. As soon as the cleaner leaves, she immediately puts on gloves. This is where she needs to find the suitcase before she can find the key to unlock it. There is a noise outside. There is no choice but to hide in the cabinet first. But the person who came in was not the person who lived there. Assistant was very scared because the man had a knife in his hand, but she didn't know that her clothes exposed her presence. But strangely, the man didn't expose her and then left the room. At this time, Jack, who was waiting downstairs, was a bit anxious. Suddenly, assistant sneaked into the car. Unexpectedly, the two's every move was in the sight of the other person. Jack questioned her, "Are you trying to embezzle the money by acting alone?" Before he finished, assistant took out the room card key that she stole from the cleaning lady and said proudly that he was loyal enough. Little did he know that this room card would make him regret it for the rest of his life. The next day, Jack could no longer hold back. First, he put on a mask and then took a knife just in case. Then he got out of the car seemingly calmly, but was actually very nervous. He then took the safe passage upstairs, and after making sure that no one was in the house, he successfully opened his lucky door with his card. Sure enough, he found the suitcase he was looking for in the house. But strangely, the suitcase was not locked. After opening it, he found that it was full of coffee beans. After searching, he realized that the money was gone a long time ago. Unbeknownst to him, the money had already reached his wife's hands. In fact, his wife had long discovered that her husband was following her, so she deliberately let him see the money, wondering what kind of things he would do for the money. It seemed that the money was taken by Junior. In fact, when they were in the coffee shop, they took out the $5 billion and put the coffee in a bag, then sent it to his wife by express. And his wife was putting the money in the warehouse at this time, together with the coffee beans to be used next year. Meanwhile, the husband here was still not giving up and searched the house. But before he could find enough, a police siren sounded outside, so he had to quickly leave the scene. The police came so quickly that he, with a guilty conscience, immediately hid. When he saw the dead Junior on the ground, Jack was so scared that he peed his pants because next to Junior was his wife's portrait. He subconsciously looked up. Unexpectedly, the window in the room was open and he didn't know. Jack quickly fled the scene. He ran to his car, thinking that 4 wheels would be faster. Before he could catch his breath, 2 policemen approached, asking him if he had noticed anything unusual in the area. Jack replied that he had just arrived and didn't know. Unexpectedly, the policeman left and then returned, feeling that this person looked familiar, and asked if he was the husband in the kidnapping case. Jack guiltily replied with 3 words, "You've got the wrong person." Before the policeman could react, he quickly started the car and left. But this suspicious behavior aroused the police's suspicion. On the other side, Anna's brother-in-law came to the house and said apologetically that he wanted some coffee. Anna politely made him some coffee, but while she wasn't looking, he was reading the letters Anna had just read. Unexpectedly, they were all payment notices from the store, but the half-torn documents in the trash can caught his attention. In order to get close to the trash can, Anna's brother-in-law started to get close to her. When Anna turned around, he quickly picked it up and stuffed it in his pocket. Then he pretended to praise Anna for making such delicious coffee. Just then, 2 policemen came to the door. The brother-in-law was so guilty that he couldn't help it. Anna was even more curious about what had happened. When she learned that Junior was dead, She looked surprised. "But I saw your husband near the scene." The brother-in-law spoke up as soon as he heard it. "Why don't you suspect each other of suicide?" The old policeman told him to mind his own business. "You are no longer a member of our police station." The brother-in-law was so angry that I was at least considered part of their family. But the old policeman didn't want to deal with this kind of rubbish. He just wanted to confirm whether Jack had arrived at the store. At this time, his subordinate informed him that Jack had not been found at the store at all. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Jack was so nervous that he called the assistant to tell him that Junior was dead. However, the other party suspected that he had killed him. This made Jack furious. Soon, he arrived at the assistant's house. The assistant casually asked, "You're not being followed by anyone, are you?" Before Jack could catch his breath, the police outside came to the door. In a panic, Jack had nowhere to escape. The assistant slowly opened the door and pretended to ask what was wrong. But the police had already prepared a search warrant and barged in before she could protest. At this time, Jack was slowly crawling down the pipe. When the old policeman stuck his head in to take a look, Jack immediately wrapped himself in a cloth. Fortunately, the police did not find anything unusual. Then Jack hurriedly ran to the car. Suddenly, a hand reached out to him. Unexpectedly, it was his wife. She asked her husband if he was crazy. Could he just drive out and turn himself in? Then his wife signaled for him to follow her. Strangely, the two went into a couple's cafe. The wife asked him tentatively why he wanted to kill Junior. Jack said, "Your goal is to frame me. Are you satisfied now?" At this, the wife looked at the dagger protruding from his abdomen. Then she got up and sat next to her husband. She told him, "If I wanted to frame you, it would be very simple. I would just take the knife with your fingerprints on it and stab myself in the stomach. Then I would wait for the police to arrive at the exact moment. By then, you would have no way to defend yourself." Just then, the police arrived. Needless to say, someone must have reported it. His wife told him that it was for his own good, and that if he kept quiet at the police station until 4 o'clock, he would be fine. Although Jack didn't believe his wife, there was nothing he could do at the time. When he arrived at the police station, he had no choice but to remain silent like an idiot. Now he pinned all his hopes on his wife. His wife appeared at the police station before 4 o'clock of her own accord and said that she would tell the whole story. She had come to help her husband clear his name. Her husband didn't expect his wife to turn herself in for him. But his wife only told the truth about one thing. The deceased Junior had attacked my husband in the garage and said he would kill my husband before committing suicide. In a panic, I used these two tools to injure him. This can be used as evidence. Afterwards, she had a bad feeling. She was afraid that Junior would do something again, so she wanted to meet with him to persuade him. But my husband said it was too dangerous and went instead. At this time, Jack immediately got up and agreed. I hadn't even seen him when I saw him dead. Could I not panic? Just then, the young man outside delivered a pot of flowers, and there was a letter inside, which was actually written by the recently deceased Junior. The general content was that I like you, and I long to be with you. But her cheating husband did not let her give up on the marriage. In order to make you happy, I would rather die with him. I will do everything I can to frame him, and hope to put your portrait in the coffin. From this it can be judged that Junior's death was a suicide and had nothing to do with anyone else. Suddenly Jack saw that the delivery time on the express delivery note was exactly 4 p.m. Could it be that all of this was planned? Jack couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine. He really didn't know that his wife's hidden strength was so strong. It was almost perfect. But when he got home, his wife confessed. I asked him to write that suicide note a few days ago. I told him to hide it somewhere. It's just like committing suicide. Husband, you really didn't kill her, did you? Wife, I definitely didn't kill her. But no matter what, this time, thanks to his wife. Otherwise, he would have been sentenced to prison. His wife thought that she and her husband could finally live a good life together. But her husband found coffee beans on the stairs and thought that the suitcase containing the money also contained these coffee beans. So the next day Jack arrived at the store early and hurried into the basement warehouse. A hunch told him that the $5 billion was hidden here. Thinking about how his wife had once been curious about his coffee beans, he was sure that the coffee beans in his hands were the ones. Unaware of what was going on, his wife woke up and found that her husband was not beside her, which was very strange. But the note on the table made her feel very warm. God knows that when things go wrong, there must be a conspiracy, because at this time, her husband had found the missing $5 billion. But suddenly, his wife called. He pretended to be calm when he answered the phone, but his wife told him seriously that she had just found a postcard in the mailbox from Junior with his new contact information. That meant she had never intended to commit suicide. Her husband didn't understand what she meant. His wife was convinced that Junior had been killed. Her husband thought that she was playing tricks again, but he still tried to persuade her not to think about it. But his wife just wanted to tell him to be careful, because there is a third enemy between us that we don't know about. Her husband had no intention of listening to her nonsense. All he could think about was how to spend the $5 billion. His assistant was so excited to know that the money was in his hands that he didn't know what to do. Jack told her to drive to the store. We were going to go abroad together for romance. But before he could get too excited, he was knocked unconscious. The person who came was his greedy brother-in-law. Looking at the bags full of money, The brother-in-law picked up 2 bags and left. Just as he was about to leave, Jack grabbed him, and the two of them started to fight. But their goal was the same, the money. As the floor was slippery, all the money in the bag spilled out. His brother-in-law suggested dividing the money equally. Jack disagreed with this. His brother-in-law then played the emotional card and seized the opportunity to grab a handful of coffee beans and threw them at Jack's eyes. After that, he picked up the other bag of cash and left the warehouse. When the assistant arrived, Jack had almost finished sorting the money on the floor. Seeing so much money, the assistant was overjoyed and made sure that there were 5 billion. When he learned that there was only half, the assistant questioned why. Jack took out the stun gun and said that his brother-in-law had taken the other half. The assistant was curious about how his brother-in-law knew there was money here. At that time, the sound of high heels let them know that his wife was here. Jack signaled to hurry up and leave. Unexpectedly, the assistant stunned him from behind. Then she took the bag of money and perfectly avoided Anna's route. From the look in her eyes, you could tell that her wife was very angry at this time. Unexpectedly, the next second she embraced her husband and was concerned about him. As long as he was fine, that was all that mattered. Her husband nearly had a heart attack from the shock, but his wife was not someone to be trifled with. She remembered tearing up the delivery note for the coffee beans and throwing it in the trash. But in the blink of an eye, it was gone. She knew that when something seemed too good to be true, there was usually a catch. Then she seemed to be in a hurry and took a taxi out the door. Her husband let out a sigh of relief. The assistant was overjoyed, discussing which country to go to next. Jack didn't care as long as there was money, but they had no idea that their wife had already found the place to buy the coffee beans. She asked if anyone had come in with a torn delivery note. When she heard that someone had, she took out a photo and asked the owner to identify the person. Sure enough, it was her brother-in-law. At this moment, her brother-in-law was also in a state of bliss. He finally had the money to gamble again, but he never imagined that he had provoked someone he shouldn't have. Anna first put on gloves and then used a syringe to extract her treasured red wine and then dripped it onto the candy. The fact that she used this bottle of wine shows how determined she was. Anna then put the candy in the fish tank. Within seconds, the goldfish inside died. Jack knew that pushing his wife too far would make her brother-in-law even madder. His wife, however, acted helpless. She had given them a chance before. She had even personally visited her brother-in-law and brought him delicious snacks, although she knew exactly why she was there. But you pretended to be dumb, even though I reminded you that you had taken something you shouldn't have. If you have, just hand it over. But you just kept challenging my patience and even let me suffer financial losses to avoid trouble. Anna understood that her brother-in-law didn't want to give up the money. Then she asked, "How did you get that new injury on your face?" Her brother-in-law calmly said he had fallen accidentally. Anna reminded him to be careful in the future. When he heard this, her brother-in-law's face instantly changed because he knew Anna was no ordinary woman. Soon Jack received a call from his brother-in-law, who told him, "Your wife just came here. Did you betray me?" Just then, his wife's phone rang. Unbeknownst to him, Anna hadn't gone far. Watching the nervous brother-in-law on the phone, she realized he must be in cahoots with someone, and the only person she suspected was her husband. Sure enough, her husband was on the phone. Now she was sure where the money was. Next, she just needed to set a trap and it would be easy. Jack and the assistant, who had a bad feeling, immediately set off. Just in case, Jack turned off his phone. But as soon as the car started, he saw his wife coming towards him. Jack was so scared that he immediately stopped the car. The assistant told him to calm down and just say that they were on a business trip. His wife knocked on the window. Her husband looked very calm. When asked where he was going, the assistant answered quickly that he was going shopping for new materials for a new product. Anna wished them a safe journey, but they didn't know that this journey had another meaning. The assistant was excited in the car. They can finally be free, but they have no idea that their wives are about to make a move. Today, the kids finished school extra early, but no one came to pick up the girl. Suddenly, she noticed her aunt. In her mind, her aunt is the person who treats her best. Sure enough, her aunt brought her toys and said to her mother, "It's rare to take you out to play today." The girl agreed at once. Soon, the brother-in-law received a message. "If you steal my true love's belongings, I will steal your true love's belongings too." So she tried calling the child's mother, and sure enough, she learned from the child's mother that the child had been taken by her aunt to play. The brother-in-law's heart fell to the bottom, and she knew that this woman was not to be trifled with. At this time, Anna sent him a message again, asking to exchange what they had in their hands and to send the stolen 50 billion to the collapsed food factory. At this moment, the brother-in-law still wanted to take a gamble and see what Anna could do with the child, but soon he became restless because the child was blindfolded and tied up. On the other side, Jack and his lover buried 2.5 billion in the ground and then prepared to order a foreign plane. At this time, Jack received a phone call from his brother-in-law, yelling at his wife for being crazy and ordering him to bring the money over immediately. When Jack saw the photo of his niece being tied up and the bloodstains next to her, he panicked. Then he dug up the money again. His lover was heartbroken, but he said, "If you were tied up, I would have ransomed you too." When the brother-in-law saw his daughter, He thought she was dead. The next second, the girl untied herself. Then she removed the white cloth from her eyes. Watching her father cry for her, she happily threw herself into his arms. Kirk was dumbfounded. Then he asked his niece if she was really okay. The girl said she was just playing a game with her aunt. She wanted to see if her divorced father still cared about her. Although the brother-in-law was deceived, he had left a good impression on his daughter's heart, but his eye had gambled everything on the $5 billion he was supposed to get. To redeem his niece, he was willing to fight with his lover, but he never expected that in the end he was tricked by his wife. Brother-in-law advised him to go home and coax her. Maybe there was still a chance. After he went back home, he looked at his home and thought about his wife's face. He made up his mind. When he entered the door, his wife had been waiting for him for a long time. He sat down as if nothing had happened. And as usual, his wife poured him a glass of red wine. His wife spoke first. "You cheated on me first. You said you were electrocuted, but your shoes are full of coffee beans. Your goal is to take this $5 billion. Even now, you are only coming home because of the $5 billion. At this point, the husband got bored and said he didn't want the money anymore. Then he took out a divorce agreement. "It's time we put an end to this." After watching it, his wife had a complete nervous breakdown. Perhaps this was not the ending she needed at all. When the husband finished packing and was about to leave, his wife threw herself into his arms, but the next second she was electrocuted. Then she was placed on the sofa. The husband never forgot the $5 billion. He had planned to take the money and go far away with his mistress. Unexpectedly, he saw an unsightly scene in the garage. Jack immediately took out his phone to take pictures. This man was his neighbor. Unexpectedly, his mistress had actually cuckolded him. Outraged, he returned and threw the photos he had just taken into his neighbor's mailbox. Unexpectedly, this return trip actually opened up a new destiny for him because the police happened to arrive. The old policeman first felt his car and then asked him if he was going out or just back. Jack could only reply that he was planning to go back. The old policeman told him to hurry home. "Your home has been burgled. The house is in a mess." The husband was so guilty-minded. Then he saw the divorce agreement on the table. He took it up immediately when he wasn't looking. While his wife lay motionless on the floor, the husband pretended to be concerned and walked over to her. Soon the wife was loaded into the ambulance, but he kept looking at his car. It wasn't until the paramedics reminded the family member to get in the car as soon as possible that he had to lock the car. He followed the ambulance to the hospital, but his wife's vital signs were normal and she was just waiting to wake up. So he took advantage of the break and immediately ran home. When he found that the 2 big bags were still there, he instantly felt relieved. At this time, his mistress came to the door and asked to take 1 bag, saying that it would be safer for her to keep it. Jack was still angry about being cuckolded and mocked her for having such bad taste in men. The mistress said that she would get her share of the money if he stopped pretending. While they were arguing, they discovered that the bag was full of useless papers, and there was also a copy of the wedding vows he had taken with his wife. The mistress looked like she hated him. After his wife woke up, she was extra affectionate with Jack, but the next second, she took out a stun gun. The husband was instantly shocked. Then his wife firmly wrapped her hands around his neck. The husband was so scared that he woke up and dared not move. Looking at his wife, who was still unconscious, he, with a guilty conscience, immediately got up. Although it was just a dream, he firmly believed that his wife was capable of doing it, so he had to get away from this dangerous person as soon as possible. Suddenly, the doctor came in to check on the patient. He discovered that his wife had already woken up. Looking at the patient, who had not spoken, the doctor asked, "Do you know who this person is?" But his wife said it was her husband. Jack was once again at a loss. His wife asked the doctor why she was in the hospital and what happened to the injury on her finger. The doctor judged from the examination that it was caused by electrocution and rolling down the stairs, resulting in meningoencephalitis. This symptom will temporarily lose memory. As for when it will recover, I don't know. And my wife's memory stopped at the time when we just got married. My husband told her that we have been married for 10 years, in order to test whether his wife is pretending. Brother-in-law specially prepared some impressive candy for her. Anna said she loves candy the most, and this candy is the one she once used to poison the goldfish. Anna didn't hesitate for a second and put it directly into her mouth. The brother-in-law helped Jack analyze whether she was pretending or not, but her goal was to keep you, so you can play along with her. And I'm no longer interested in those $5 billion. I'm only interested in her as a housewife now. Soon, the wife was discharged from the hospital and couldn't believe how big her house was and how clean it was. She wondered if she had been a germaphobe for the past few years, but at least now she didn't. Her husband was transfixed. It was a movement she hadn't made in years. And just then, the memory of the stairs began to fade. She always felt like she wanted to remember something, but she tried hard and couldn't. Her husband looked at her with concern and asked what was wrong. His wife didn't ask, because she knew something had happened between her and her husband, but a hint of disappointment had already appeared in her eyes. Her husband played the role of a good man and told her to go upstairs and rest for a while he cooked dinner. But when she reached the top of the stairs, an inexplicable memory came back to her, but she couldn't see the face of the person she had fallen with. She just remembered that she had fallen down the stairs. When her husband saw this, He immediately helped her to her room to rest. His wife was curious as to why there were two beds. Did we sleep in separate beds? His husband said helplessly. You asked for it. He also said that a sense of tension was good for a couple. His wife couldn't figure out what she was thinking. While brushing his teeth, her husband kept an eye on her to see if she was still as clean freakish as before. Then he spit out a big mouthful of foam to see how she would react. He even deliberately brushed his teeth in front of her in a disgusting manner. Unexpectedly, his wife didn't find it offensive at all. Instead, she imitated him and spit out messily. But just as he was about to go to sleep, his wife suddenly climbed into his bed and even curled up next to him, saying that this was the only way to feel comfortable. It was hard to believe that he could sleep in this state. The husband suggested, "Why don't we have a drink?" Then he took out a bottle of red wine and said, "I had a bottle of red wine that I wanted to drink with you, but I'm afraid it's hard to find." His wife asked, "Why?" The husband said, "You hid it." His wife perked up at this. Could it be that we still like playing hide and seek? The husband said, "I don't think you can find it now." Using a provoking tactic, this trick really worked. As soon as the wife heard this, she immediately went to look for it. According to her personality, it would either be hidden in the cupboard or under the sofa. The husband couldn't help but doubt whether she really had amnesia. Suddenly, the wife thought of her favorite way to hide things in the flower pot, and she really found the bottle of poisonous red wine. As soon as the husband saw it, he knew it was the bottle she had tampered with. The wife then lifted the wine glass. You couldn't see a trace of fear. The only way to be sure was to actually drink it. You have to know that this stuff is deadly in just one drop. His heart was in his throat, but his wife didn't seem to hesitate at all. The next second, Jack stopped his wife. Seeing that his wife didn't want to waste any, Jack was convinced that she really had amnesia. But the next day, after just sending her husband away, Anna immediately put on a smile because she remembered something very important. Then she rummaged around the house. She tried hard to remember by slapping her head, but she just couldn't remember what important thing she was looking for. Obviously, she really had amnesia. But suddenly, Anna saw two familiar bags, and when she opened them, they were full of useless papers. At that moment, she suddenly remembered that night she had an argument with her husband and asked for a divorce. She was so angry that she lost her mind. She wanted to persuade her husband to stay, but he used an electric baton to stun her. Then he took her 5 billion won. She didn't know that she had already switched the two bags of money. But where did the real money go? She looked at the stairs. Did something else happen afterwards? Her memory always seemed to be like being pushed down the stairs, but she couldn't remember who it was. But at least she had recovered half of her memory. Her obsessive-compulsive personality showed itself again. She couldn't tolerate a single stain. But when her husband was at home, she just lay on the sofa and ate to her heart's content, without caring about her appearance at all. This way, she wouldn't make her husband suspicious. She had recovered her memory. But in the end, her disguise would eventually be revealed. Her husband suddenly noticed that the washstand was unusually clean. This was very similar to what his wife had done before. Then the next morning, he deliberately forgot his wallet at home. Then he secretly observed his wife from outside. And sure enough, she found her wife tidying up the messy house. So she sent a message to her wife, saying that he had forgotten his wallet and would be home soon. The next second, she actually put the trash back on the table. The husband outside saw his hair stand on end when he pretended to enter the door. His wife looked like she was just idling around. The husband didn't understand why his wife was acting in front of him. At this time, his wife inexplicably came to the warehouse, seemed to be looking for something. Watching her search earnestly, the husband felt something was wrong, so he took the initiative to ask if she was looking for coffee beans. The wife asked in return, "Don't you want to know where it is hidden? Maybe it's hidden here." The husband questioned her, "Have you recovered your memory?" As he watched his wife go to get it, he instinctively took one step ahead of her and then hurriedly opened the bag. At this point, the wife's test was complete. She said, "Since you were also looking for money, you shouldn't have it." The husband knew that she was preparing to do something again. Sure enough, the wife proposed that we cooperate to find the 5 billion first. Soon, she used the 6th anniversary of their marriage as an excuse to invite the staff to celebrate at home. Then at the dinner table, she casually mentioned the 50 billion. She observed everyone's expressions and reactions, but she couldn't tell who had taken the money. While her wife was upstairs in the bathroom, she stopped the chef, who was passing by, and asked him tentatively, "Did you take the money?" The chef looked at her slowly. Anna was thrilled by his guilty expression. She told him to hand over the 50 billion. The chef was extremely disappointed when he heard this. "Didn't you ask me to hide the 50 billion? This answer completely took her by surprise. That day, her husband, desperate, proposed divorce and pulled out the divorce agreement he had prepared long ago. She was so angry that she overturned the table with one hand, but her husband stunned her with a stun gun. His goal was to take the 5 billion, but his wife had already tampered with it. Soon she woke up and regardless of the pain in her body, immediately went into a state of combat readiness. She picked up the divorce agreement on the floor and placed it on the table. Then she found an honest chef and tricked him into her home. Then she asked him to keep the 5 billion. Then she put a bandit's mask on him and told the cook to push her down the stairs. Just as she was about to lie down, the cook grabbed her and asked if she was crazy. Anna assured him that she didn't remember anything. She didn't even know what the robber looked like. Then she collapsed. It's true that women are terrifying when they get angry. At this moment, Anna's memory was fully awakened. At this moment, the cook really didn't know if she was really suffering from amnesia or not, and their conversation was all heard by her husband. But losing her memory was really not part of her plan. Now that the truth was out, it was time to reconcile. On their wedding anniversary, the husband gave her back her wedding ring. The wife did not act irrationally for the first time, but asked her husband calmly before he left if he had been happy during the 6 years of marriage. The husband did not find this funny. He took his wife by the shoulders and told her, "Why I always wanted to leave you, because I was afraid that I would lose control and want to kill you myself." This tear from the wife fell with great disappointment. Perhaps it was the last trace of hatred the husband felt for her that made her come up with another plan. As her husband was leaving, the wife actually gave him a divorce gift, 5 billion in cash. The husband couldn't help but laugh. He thought his wife was asking him to take the 2 bags of trash on the floor with him, but Jack had just put the stuff in the car. So with a glimmer of hope, he opened the bag and sure enough, it was cash. He didn't realize that the 50 billion had come without any effort. Is this really true as his wife said? That she never cared about money? Before, she just wanted to use 50 billion to keep him. Maybe this is the legendary true love. Anyway, for now, he booked a high-end presidential suite to enjoy it. I wonder if his wife has really let go. She was eating breakfast as if nothing had happened, and her attitude was like that of a winner, while her husband slept all night with a pile of money. With money, he spoke with a special air of authority. When the waiter brought the snacks, he even generously rewarded him with a few bills. But Jack would never have guessed that his wife had taken the initiative to find his lover and said, "I'll let my man go to you." One day, Jack accidentally knocked over the wedding photo and suddenly realized that there were more photos underneath. He looked at them for a long time, and his whole body turned green. Jack suddenly remembered what his brother-in-law had said. There's something fishy going on. Why would she give you 5 billion in cash if she was getting a divorce? He reminded him that it was because of the 5 billion that Junior had lost his life. According to his investigation over the past few days, your wife actually has an accomplice. We need to know their current relationship. After all, this person was once your wife's tutor, but I don't know what happened between the two of them. That your father-in-law was driven out of the country. Then the two of them went to the bar run by the man. Unfortunately, he wasn't there today. Brother-in-law immediately thought of a trick. He told the waiter that the sign outside your house had fallen over. Sure enough, the waiter was tricked into going out. Then with brother-in-law's keen skills, he quickly found a secret box. Inside there was not only a business card but also a photo of the two of them. A close-up photo of them as adults indicating that there was only one possibility. So he immediately took a photo as evidence. Brother-in-law then analyzed the business card. The characters on it were actually the name of the bar that the bartender had closed. And this photo was enough to prove that they have been together since you got married. The husband didn't realize that he had been cuckolded for a long time. At this time, the lover came to him on her own initiative. Jack asked her what she was thinking. The lover directly told him that you have already got the money, right? Jack immediately thought of the place where he hid the money. When the lover saw that the trunk was full of 5 billion, she was so excited that she praised Jack for his ability. She was so proud that she showed her the photo of her wife and the bartender. Now I have all the evidence of her cheating. After reading it, the lover was not shocked at all. No wonder Anna was so willing to give her husband to herself. Then the lover pulled out a voice recorder and said, "Your wife just came to see me," and the recording on it was actually your wife trying to kill him, because any man who cheats on her deserves to die, and I've already taken out insurance. If I die in an accident, I'll get 10 billion. For you. It's all about money anyway, so let's join forces. Jack gasped in shock. The lover assured him that joining forces was just a way to trick Anna. If we really joined forces, I wouldn't be able to let you hear this. Before long, Jack received a message from his wife, inviting him to a divorce dinner at home. His lover didn't expect Anna to be so quick. No wonder she wanted the poison made as soon as possible. It's still the kind that can't be detected in the cause of death. After hearing this, Jack's heart completely panicked. He immediately got up and wanted to go to the police. His lover reminded him that a verbal statement could never be used as evidence. But Jack said, "We can't just sit here and do nothing." His lover told him to use his head. "We can't let Anna lead us by the nose. The best way is to outsmart her." At this moment, Anna carefully poured the powder into the container. The lover on the side watched with a chill down his spine, because he knew that this was the result of her hard work all night long. She ground the raw material, sumac, into a powder, added water and a mysterious solvent, mixed it well and then separated the toxins, loaded the extracted toxins into the container, and baked it for 49 minutes through a conduit to extract the white powder. This powder is called a toxin, and its effect can be lethal. Moreover, The forensic doctor can't detect that it was poisoning that killed him. In order to help Anna poison her husband and obtain a large insurance payout, her lover agreed to help her make the poison. Unexpectedly, Anna prepared 2 small bottles and gave one to her lover as a sign of their partnership. Her lover asked her what she planned to do after the murder. Anna had already thought about it. She would bury him in the mountains and then report him missing to the police. After waiting a month to get the insurance money, they would split it in half and be done. This was the last time Jack went home. Today they were having a farewell dinner together. The 2 of them had agreed to cook and eat together. But the 2 of them, each with their own sinister intentions, cooked their own dishes. Then the wife lovingly ate a strawberry for him. At this time, Jack dared not eat recklessly, for fear that the strawberries had been poisoned by his wife. At this time, he thought of what his lover had said. Although your wife is preparing to put poison in the ribs, you should not be careless with the other dishes. So the husband pretended to take it down, but did not put it in his mouth. Instead, he washed the strawberries again and again, and wiped them, before slowly putting them in his mouth. He finally let out a sigh of relief when nothing happened within 5 seconds. Then, as his wife poured salt into the pot, the husband suddenly yelled, saying that he would also use it when cooking poached fish later. His wife asked if she couldn't use the salt. His husband told her to use less. He knew that white powder had been added to it. He had to put more on the salmon, because he knew that his wife loved it. While her husband was busy in the kitchen, his wife slowly opened the small bottle and shook it with all her strength. Naturally, her husband saw this operation. He thought, "You will die before me." Soon, a sumptuous dinner was ready. Looking at the table of food, Jack scanned the room. At this moment, the wife started eating first, but her outstretched hand suddenly retracted to dip into another sauce. She found that after eating, the wife had not been poisoned. Then Jack also put in a slice of ham like picking blind boxes. His nervous heart was relieved that the ham was also safe. Then he watched what the wife was eating. He followed what she ate. Sure enough, he found it was safe. When the wife wanted to eat seafood, Jack's face was full of anticipation. But just as he was about to put it in his mouth, the wife started talking about their past. She almost died in the sea just to eat seafood. If it weren't for the 2 of them working together, they would have probably been reincarnated by now. When she said this, the wife suddenly burst into tears and apologized to Jack. "I once thought about letting you eat poison. I put poison in this dish. Once you're dead, I'll follow you, because I really love you. I pretended to join forces with my lover to get rid of you. In a while, my lover will also come over with a bottle of poison wine. You must not drink it. I really can't face you. I'd better go first." When the husband saw this, he immediately stopped her. Just then, the doorbell rang. It's her lover with the wine. The wife pretended to apologize to her lover. She couldn't kill her husband. "I'm sorry to have gotten you involved with us. Let's just pretend it never happened." The lover realizes she's been tricked. She was so angry that she instinctively grabbed the food on the table and stuffed it into her mouth. Fuko looked dumbfounded. Doesn't she know there's poison in the food? By the time she realized it, it was too late. Fuko was too scared to come forward. By now, she was already spitting blood. She passed away in no time. The couple was terrified, especially when they saw her not moving. Fuko completely panicked. The wife suddenly realized that her lover had eaten sashimi, so she asked her husband if he was trying to poison her. Hyuko quickly changed the subject. "Let's call an ambulance first." But the wife is not letting go of this question. She asked if he put poisonous lacquer tree extract in the food. It's a poison that can kill you in minutes. The wife thinks no wonder her husband stopped her from eating this dish. That means we still have feelings for each other. Then she took him by the hand. "Now that it's happened, we have to face it together. We have to find a way to solve the problem." But then my brother-in-law arrived. The wife quickly proposed a division of labor. She told her husband to deal with the brother-in-law. She left him to deal with his lover's body. When the brother-in-law came in, Hyuko started to stall for time. He asked him if he'd been looking for his sister. The brother-in-law rolls his eyes. Hyuko immediately changed the subject. "Why don't we go out and talk to her?" This behavior made his brother-in-law realize something was wrong, so he opened the door. But he couldn't find anything unusual at that moment. In order to eliminate the evidence, Hyuko hurriedly cleaned up the dishes on the table. Suddenly, his brother-in-law tried to eat, but he stopped him immediately. His behavior made him suspect something was wrong. Looking at Hyuko's nervousness, he couldn't help but look around. He found a blood stain on the stool. On the other hand, Haiju is handling her lover's body. Then she drove her out of here. The next door neighbor saw it all. Fuko was so nervous after his brother-in-law left. He wondered what his wife was doing, but he didn't realize that she was in the middle of nowhere. She took out the recording of her lover's plan. She wanted to work together to poison her husband. They'd get the husband's insurance money and split it up. But she didn't realize that her lover had died in an accident. Then she started digging a hole. She buried her lover here in complete safety. When the husband came to the garage, he saw his wife covered in dirt. He was told that he had finished with his lover, and he saw how skillfully she did it. He asked her how she did it so calmly. "This is at least a living person's life. Wife also helpless, I'm not helping you." The husband blamed himself for killing his lover. The wife reassured him that it's okay. I also participated in the dumping of the body, so we are accomplices. She hugged her husband and reassured him that everything would be fine. Unbeknownst to her, someone was secretly listening outside. Early in the morning, when Haiju was walking her husband out the door, she suddenly found a letter in the mailbox. She took it out and saw that it was her kidnapper. Is her brother still alive? The words in the letter made Hyuko break out in a cold sweat. His wife couldn't believe it either. By now, Hyuko was shaking in his boots. Haiju immediately helped her husband into the house. When she got inside, her wife was confused. She didn't realize that there was an enemy she didn't know about. He was trying to extort $5 billion in cash. Haiju told her husband to get the $5 billion back from his lover. Then she went back to work as if nothing had happened. She reassured her husband that he would be fine. It's just a matter of giving him the money to keep him safe. In fact, Haiju already had a suspect in mind, but she didn't tell her husband, so she went to her brother-in-law's house alone. She said she had something to show you. Then she pulled out the blackmail letter. Her brother-in-law laughed and said he didn't do it. Haiju could see that he wasn't lying, but her brother-in-law already knew they killed their lover. But Haiju wasn't scared at all and said we're a family. From the device, there's a surveillance camera in the house. It means that this person must know everything about their house. But who else could it be but the dead lover? On the other hand, Hyuko went to his lover's house to retrieve the $5 billion, but when he was about to leave, he saw a familiar house. He looked at the familiar faces, thinking about how happy they used to be. Now he can't see his lover in this house anymore. His heart was empty. Then he put the $5 billion in the trunk, but as soon as he opened the trunk, he began to hallucinate. He felt that his lover's body was inside. Then he came to the store and walked like a zombie, but the head chef asked if Mr. Chen wasn't coming today. He spat out a few words with difficulty. He took the day off, but leave is leave. Why is the boss in such a strange state? Hyuko wanted to use wine to strengthen his courage, but he didn't realize that the more he was scared, the more he was afraid. The more he heard something different. His lover's voice keeps ringing in his ears. He can even see hallucinations. And then the police came looking for him. Hyuko's instinct was to hold on to the cop. Luckily, the old cop stopped him. Only then did he regain his senses. When he saw what happened on the floor, the old policeman concluded that Herho had been stimulated. At that moment, his wife was at home. She's trying to figure out how to get the enemy to show up. Hyuko looked at the photo of his lover. He told the police everything. He could have obviously passed the university entrance exam on his own, but he happened to meet a scumbag like me. Unfortunately, he also lost his life because of this. The old policeman didn't expect that this time. He actually had an unexpected gain. Strangely, Jack clearly surrendered, but on the way to the police station, he asked to get out of the car on the pretext of going to the toilet. But no one expected that a person who has surrendered would have other plans, and then got into a car that was waiting for him. Unexpectedly, the other party was the bartender. Just then he received a message in the police car, saying that he had seen the lover die, and wanted to know who I was, so he came to the black car ahead. But as soon as he got in the car, Jack regretted it. He asked the other party to stop the car, but the bartender played him a recording, and the voice recorder was the entire process of his wife and lover discussing the deal. Anna reminded her lover that when they had dinner together at the appointed time, all the dishes would be poisoned, except for the salmon, which was safe, and she should not eat it. At that time, the mistress was indeed eating salmon, which means Anna deliberately let her eat it. Soon the bartender took Jack to the scene where the body was dumped and told him that his lover was buried there. Jack could not bear to watch anymore, and then he asked the bartender why he had to tell him this. But the bartender handed him a bag and said, "This contains the tool your wife used to commit the crime." Looking at the shoes and the tool in his hands, Jack couldn't help but laugh. "So you can betray too? I don't think even my wife knew about this plot twist. You're really petty. Just because she was willing to take risks and dump the body for me, you ruthlessly betrayed her," the bartender reminded him. "At the moment, the only person who knows your wife committed the crime is you. You decide whether to protect yourself." Unaware of what was going on, his wife was still calling Jack, but it was always turned off. She suddenly realized that something was wrong. Sure enough, it was at the police station. Jack turned himself in again, but this time, he brought a bag. Then he said, "My lover and my wife killed him." Then he attached evidence. When he took out the shoes, Jack said, "My wife also killed Junior." But the old policeman just glanced at it and angrily rebuked him for not knowing his own wife. "These shoes are not the same size as Anna's." Jack was suddenly confused. These shoes are obviously the ones he threw away. The old policeman surmised that this was most likely the suspect who killed Junior, and that the suspect was nearby. Just then, his lover appeared in front of him. Jack looked incredulous. He touched the evidence to prove that he was not hallucinating. In order to prevent the police from misunderstanding, the lover said that they had just had a normal argument. "I turned off my phone. You didn't take my angry words about suicide seriously, did you? I didn't think you cared enough to report me missing. Let the police help you find me." After he came out, Jack felt like an idiot. He had been tricked by his wife before, and now he was being double-crossed by his mistress and wife. His mistress followed him around, nagging him, but he didn't expect to get a slap in the face. His wife was on the phone, asking how things were going. Then she asked the other person to send her 5 billion by courier. Soon a courier truck pulled up. The neighbor's wife had been waiting for a long time. When she saw a box being carried out, she was both nervous and excited. Just as she was about to crouch down, Anna slowly appeared behind her. Then she looked at her with gratitude. "Did you think I wasn't home so you signed for the package for me?" The neighbor's sister immediately explained. "I had just come back from a walk. It looked like the young man was having a hard time delivering the package. I thought I'd lend a hand." In fact, Anna had been watching from a distance, just wondering who the person was. How dare they put a listening device in their home? Now that she knows who the person is, she didn't expose them, but thanked them for being so helpful. Then she opened the box in front of the woman, asked if she wanted to take some. The family had run out of toilet paper, thinking that they were buying one and getting one free. She stocked up. Then she picked up 2 bags and said that good things should be shared. But the older neighbor woman had never experienced the power of women. When she got home, she angrily threw the toilet paper aside. Then she eavesdropped again. And when Anna returned home, she slammed the suitcase down heavily. Then she deliberately made friction noises. The eardrums of the neighbor on the other side almost shattered. But Anna didn't realize that the neighbor had also set their sights on their family's 5 billion. But every time she saw her and her little husband being affectionate, is it possible that the couple want to get their hands on her? And every time they go out, they see them and come over to make friends. On the surface, everyone praises the neighbors as an exemplary couple, but only they themselves know if they are really happy. Last time, when she returned from losing her memory, the neighbor's eldest sister kindly asked if she was feeling better. After expressing her gratitude, she praised her son for being so handsome. The eldest sister's face immediately turned red. At the time, she really lost her memory and didn't know that they were husband and wife. Luckily, her husband interrupted and said that his wife had a brain injury after the fall. The neighbor was angry, but she knew that anyone could see that her husband was much younger than her. But this young husband was no good. He had wanted to work with his lover to get 5 billion. Unexpectedly, he said that he was not even married. He and the female neighbor were just a fake couple, and they had signed a long-term contract. But the neighbor had not paid him for months, so he thought of another way to make money. That's why he installed surveillance cameras in their house. Then he listened in every day. After learning that they had killed their lover, he knew his chance had come. So he stuffed a blackmail letter demanding 5 billion into the mailbox. But it was seen by his fake wife, and the two of them began to open up for the first time. And the neighbor's sister also admitted that she had killed Junior. But little husband already knew, and it was from that moment that little husband began to pay attention to the couple next door and set his sights on the 5 billion. The day he died, he was in a strange state of mind and would tremble when he saw the news. The neighbor's sister guessed that he also wanted to find the 5 billion, so he tried to sneak into his room to find it. But before he could find it, Junior came back, and they started fighting. In the panic, he threw Anna's portrait out, and Junior took the opportunity to go get it back. But Junior pushed him down. Since they had the same goal, they joined forces, but they completely ignored Anna's tactics. The next day, Anna carefully made a cake. Then she pushed the wine cart aside and said to the socket that the cake she made was very delicious, and you are welcome to come and taste it. The neighbor's sister was so scared that she didn't know what to do. She immediately called her husband, but her husband was also doing secret work outside at the time and had no time to check the phone. So she left a message for her husband saying, "Something big has happened. The surveillance has been discovered. What should we do now?" Just then, the doorbell rang. Unexpectedly, Anna came personally with the cake. The silly sister seemed calm as she poured her tea, but in fact, she was very nervous. It was impossible to tell if she was crying or smiling. At this time, Anna directly took out an envelope and pretended to be very kind. "What do you mean? You'll get 5 billion if you don't report that you killed your lover. Was this your little husband's idea?" The neighbor's sister pretended to be calm and didn't understand what Anna was saying. Anna also pretended to be surprised. Who would curse their lover to death? The lover is still alive and well. It turns out that the lover just put on a show with her. She pretended to eat the poisonous food and took the opportunity to swallow the blood plasma. Then she bit into it and spat it out. Perfectly fooled her husband. And the brother-in-law's visit was also predicted in advance. Then she sent her husband away to calm the brother-in-law, while she and her lover quickly cleaned up the scene. The two of them had never rehearsed it, but they cooperated very well, and even let the lover pretend to lie in the trunk. Everything was done seamlessly. The husband, who knew the truth, was furious. The lover's goal was to get money. She used the spare key to directly take the 5 billion from Jack's car. When he got back, Jack was like on drugs and started yelling at the living room. Just then, he suddenly saw a letter on the table. The other party asked him to take the 5 billion to redeem his wife. After reading it, Jack suddenly flew into a rage. His wife is going all the way to the end. How dare she play this trick on him? If he believes this time, he is sick in the head. Anna also confronted her neighbor's sister. She grabbed her sister and told her to turn herself in. This situation made her sister confused. She questioned why she had to turn herself in. Anna defended her junior. "My poor junior was pushed off the building by you." But the silly sister said, "If you want to blame someone, Blame yourself. If you hadn't lured me with 5 billion, I wouldn't have done such a thing. Anna began to laugh at her sister. We'll act out our own drama. What's it to you, fake couple? The way you two look. No one would believe you're husband and wife. But a smart woman doesn't go provoking someone in their territory. Obviously she meant it. You have to know that even a rabbit will bite when cornered. So the silly sister took out a knife and stabbed Anna in the back. The knife really went in. It was a face-off anyway, so just hand over the 5 billion. And the husband on this side was still not satisfied. He yelled at his wife in the air. What other tricks do you want to play? Little did he know that his wife had really been kidnapped at this time, and it was in the neighbor's house just a wall away. Just then, Jack was still at home throwing a temper tantrum. The police suddenly came to the door. He impatiently asked the police what they were doing at this hour, but the police were not looking for him, but wanted to ask why no one was at the neighbor's house. Jack thought to himself, what does it have to do with me? But the police didn't just come out of the blue. They had discovered the neighbor's fingerprints on Junior's drawing. As soon as he said this, Jack had a bad feeling. Then he picked up the kidnapping letter he had just thrown away. He was just about to explain this to the police when a knife suddenly appeared at his neck. Then he could only follow the prompts given by the other party and say that the neighbor's family had gone on a trip abroad. After he had fobbed off the police, Jack then realized that his wife had really been kidnapped. He thought to himself, could it be that his wife and someone else have set up a scam to get the 5 billion? It was clear that the other person was impatient for him to just take the money. Jack took him to the garage and threatened to open the trunk and take a look. There was nothing in it at all. Even he was fooled. But the other person kept the knife pressed against him, so Jack told the other person his guess, that it was probably the lover who took it. And the lover did take the money. Jack took the opportunity to grab a golf club lying nearby and threatened, "My wife, do whatever you want with her." Then he fled out of the garage. Seeing this, the young husband immediately told his fake wife to change positions. Not only did the guy escape, but the police were looking for you everywhere. At this time, Anna had not moved. Jack, who had just escaped, was just catching his breath when he received a call from a stranger. He answered nervously and discovered that it was the bartender. Jack told him not to play any tricks. "You're in this together." But the bartender was still talking. "Believe it or not, I just received a strange letter from your wife." But Jack was still arguing. "She's so smart. You can play with her. Don't involve me anymore." Obviously, the bartender's words made Jack a little panicked. In fact, the bartender had just received this letter as well. It said, "If something happens to me, please give this letter to my husband and tell him the truth. Tell him thank you for the past 6 years." She also attached the declaration of love from the beginning. Sure enough, Jack came to the bartender, and he came to question the bartender. "What exactly are you plotting with my wife? And since when have you two been dating? Were you together when you were at school, as tutors?" The bartender questioned him if he was jealous. Then he handed Jack the letter. Jack guessed that it was a secret code between him and his wife when he saw the characters. The bartender was telling him that the characters were Anna and your promise. "The day you two proposed in my store was November 31st. Looking at the things his wife left him, he broke down again. So he asked the bartender if something happened to him, to remember to light a joss stick for him. Soon Jack received a message. Clicking on the video of his wife, watching his wife weekly saying her final goodbyes, he was desperate and didn't know what to do. But all the kidnapper wanted was the 5 billion. So he called his lover, asking her if she took the 5 billion in the car. The lover asked him what he wanted to say. Jack asked her to borrow it. His lover laughed at him, wondering if he was making an excuse to say that his wife had kidnapped him for money. Jack cried, saying that this time it was for real. It was possible that the couple next door had done it. His lover told him not to worry, that his wife was fine. She had even asked me to wait for her. At that moment, an unexpected guest arrived behind his lover. It was the neighbor's young husband. When Jack arrived at the store, he found that his lover had been kidnapped, and the 5 billion had also been taken. Fortunately, his lover had injured the neighbor's young husband in the leg with scissors, so he shouldn't have gone far. His lover told Jack to go get the 5 billion back. He could borrow it for now, but he must pay it back later. Sure enough, the neighbor's brother was badly hurt, and his fake wife was also fully prepared. 50 kilograms of gasoline sent Anna's heart plummeting. Soon the little brother reported to his fake wife that he had got the money, but the fake wife told him to run away with 5 billion. The little brother asked her what nonsense she was talking about at this time. Jack over here was like a headless fly, looking around in a flurry. He didn't know where the kid had run off to. Suddenly, he seemed to have noticed something unusual. His wife was wearing 2 rings on her hand. Suddenly he remembered that he had thrown the ring out of anger, and the one his wife was wearing was his. He never imagined that his wife was so clever, and took advantage of the situation when her opponent wasn't looking. She looked at the ring her husband had thrown away on the ground, and put it on her finger as if she had coughed. With his wife in place, Jack only wanted to save the person and didn't want to chase after the 5 billion. At this time, the silly older sister was in a fever and was sprinkling gasoline all over the house. Then she picked up the lighter, and her wife realized that all women were ruthless when they got angry. Just as the silly older sister was hesitating, Jack rushed in. The wife signaled Jack to escape quickly, but her husband didn't want to leave her. The silly older sister didn't believe that they had a loving side, so the older sister told them to either leave one or both, and that's what the wife had been waiting to hear. She thanked her husband for his love for her, and finally hoped that her husband would go out in a new pair of shoes before leaving. Although Jack was a little confused, she knew that her wife must have a reason for doing this. Then he opened the shoe cabinet and found an extinguisher inside. This is truly worthy of his clever wife, but she didn't expect the neighbor boy to arrive at this time, and once again put a knife to his neck. Little Miss Stupid didn't expect her young husband to turn back and let her leave with 5 billion. Anna laughed, not expecting this fake couple to have feelings for each other. Little Miss Stupid was enraged and threw the lighter directly out. The small flame ignited the curtains. Young husband quickly went up to put out the fire, because if it caught fire, all their movements would be exposed. Fortunately, the fire was put out in time and did not become a major fire. Young husband told his wife not to make the same mistake again, but silly sister just wanted to go down the same path to the end. There was no turning back for her anyway, so she picked up the dagger on the ground and stabbed Jack. Watching her husband get stabbed in the same place as her, the wife didn't expect to get him into trouble. Silly sister was also scared, but her husband was stabbed in a fatal position. Seeing her husband slowly weakening, the wife pushed the two of them over with all her strength. As the candle fell to the ground, the fire quickly spread. Fortunately, after a period of recovery, everything was normal except for the inconvenience in walking. But the strange thing is that the police have never found the silly older sister and her fake husband. Although the husband was stabbed and damaged some of his organs, he was lucky to have survived. After the house was burned down, the two moved back to their mother-in-law's house in the countryside, and the lover got the coffee shop that his wife gave him as he wished. Now the one who was having the worst time is the neighbor boy, because the police never gave up looking for this fake couple, and they have been living on the run. Little did they know that this couple is the ultimate winner. One day, the husband received an email, and it was from the United States. Then the two met each other. The other party pulled out the regulations and asked them to sign. The husband had taken out some kind of kidnap insurance. The other party explained that your money had been stolen, and your house had been burned down, and you had been injured. You have received full compensation. When he learned that he would receive 16 billion yuan in compensation, the husband couldn't believe it and asked again, but the wife looked very calm throughout. It seemed like she had expected it all, but then the other party dropped another bombshell. The beneficiary was actually the spouse. In other words, the beneficiary was him. So he put on his glasses, and when he saw the designated beneficiary in Article N31, Jack finally understood the meaning of this character and couldn't help but look at his wife. It turned out that what he had always needed was not me, but a husband. When the husband signed his name, the wife's plan should have ended perfectly. It's a pity about this pair of fugitives. It turned out that at the time she intended to set a fire, and then when they were about to leave, she proposed a joint plan. She asked the two to help her husband and me move to the entrance and called an ambulance for us. I will tell the police that you were in your own home, so you had plenty of time to escape. You can just take the 5 billion. For this 5 billion, this fake couple made the perfect wedding clothes for her, and soon they will celebrate their wedding anniversary. The wife specially prepared some red wine, and Jack is familiar with this bottle. The wife asked him, "Do you remember our vows?" The husband held out his hand. "Of course I remember, we even put our seals on it." At this moment he guessed in his heart, could it be that he was being set up here?